Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have guest Jeremy Spillane going to be joining us. He's the author of Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife. This is an incredible story. I just started getting into the book. I've had a busy week. My kids were on spring break, so I really haven't got to dive too deep in it. But I got the gist from Gavin that got this guest for us. What this is. This is really interesting stuff here. His in-laws passed away separately at different times, but both started reaching out to him and his wife through the afterlife. They're alive, right? Joan and Roger, alive in the afterlife. One of my favorite stories to hear from people are these. How loved ones come through after they pass away with signs and different things. But these ones really came through on. He's been doing like an SLS camera, using like other equipment. Has a thing called a digital dowser camera. We'll get into some of that, and you never know what happens live here on this show. We've done our live ITC, and spirits have come through here. Maybe the Joan and Roger will come through here tonight. Who knows? Things happen, but later also we'll open up the phone lines for you to call in, share your experiences with loved ones that come to you after they pass. I'd love to hear your stories tonight if you want to share, but that'll be later. And of course, first off tonight it will be the World Wide Web of Weird, and as always, the world just keeps getting weirder and weirder every day, so I always have to edit down which stories I want to choose to do. That's not a problem for doing the World Wide Web of Weird, but might be a problem for humanity for some of these. I don't know, like the cocaine sharks I'm going to talk about. But we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Our guest, Jeremy Spillane, will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird after our first commercial break. But joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you do tonight, Jamie?
Doing great, thank you.
Glad to have you here. Rob won't be joining us. I think he's out. His wife's birthday was either yesterday or today. Yesterday, I think. So I think he's out enjoying time with her. Good for him. So no Rob tonight. Yeah. But we do, like I said, have a lot of weird to get to, and we have a great guest tonight. So let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I know pretty much every Weird Wednesday, that's Jamie and Rob's show, every World Wide Web of Weird every Sunday, we end up talking about the next change of plans with the lunar mission. Well, there's another. I'm going to start off with this one tonight. NASA cancels lunar space station in favor of a more ambitious plan. They haven't been very ambitious lately, it seems like. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup Radio Network on the Talkstream Live Paranormal Radio app, we are a live webcast streaming out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. If you want to listen, I'll narrate as best as possible. All right, let me get the share screen up here. Since I don't have Rob tonight, I'm always rusty with this, but he hasn't been doing it in a while. He has issues with it too, and I don't know videos tonight, thankfully, because StreamYard's been a total crap show for videos. I don't know why. All right, so first off, NASA's ambitious plans here. This is the original article from The Guardian, but I got Unexplained Mysteries, which is a little bit shorter. When the first manned mission around the moon, Artemis 2, still on schedule for launch in April 1st, it seems that NASA, April Fool's Day, is it really going to happen, right? It seems that NASA has been thinking long and hard about the future of lunar exploration. While there have been plans to place a permanent orbital outpost around the moon to act as a stepping stone for future manned missions to the lunar surface, new NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has now revealed that this won't actually be going ahead as planned. Instead, the space agency will work to set up a base on the moon's surface, a process that will take around 7 years, and will reuse some of the lunar gateway's already completed components. It should not really surprise anyone that we are pausing Gateway in its current form and focusing on infrastructure that supports sustained operations on the lunar surface. Isaacman told the attendees at a recent event at NASA's headquarters in Washington, D.C. Despite some of the very real hardware and schedule challenges, we can repurpose equipment and international partner commitments. Oh, I'm sure those are going great right now. To support surface and other program objectives. As things stand, it isn't clear exactly what these changes will mean for the manned space program moving forward, especially given that the Lunar Gateway had arrived to enable easier access to the moon's surface. Perhaps the most important thing needed to be building a base. I guess I kind of agree with this one. I mean, you're going to need a base on the moon. And before you ever decide to go to Mars and put a base there, you need to learn how to build a base on the nearest object in space, that we can try on that's uninhabitable and people survive and you don't kill everybody. And at the same time, I already think aliens have a base there. Well, we might even already have a base there. It's secret. I don't know. But we don't, either way, other countries eventually are going to go there and try to claim territory and put bases there. So, yay, we can go blow up stuff on the moon next. Right? I don't know. But yeah, things are continuing to change in that front. All right, let me remove that. All right, next up. Article 2. Now, I talked about this, it's been a few months ago, or a couple months ago when it first came out. Maybe it's only been a couple months. Elon Musk's proposed orbital data centers will be larger than the International Space Station. Here's a picture from SpaceX. What they're thinking here. There are a few who could argue that Elon Musk lacks ambition, as evidence again this week with evidence that reveals the billionaire's upcoming plans for a space and artificial intelligence. One of his goals, which we briefly reported on a few weeks back, is to launch an orbital AI data center that will harness solar energy to produce computational power. During his briefing this week, Musk reveals a concept for these data centers, hinting at enormous orbital platforms larger than an International Space Station that would be visible in the night sky. How do you feel about that? Looking up and, it's a star. No, that's a data center. I got a data center down the street, right? Like data centers everywhere, in space, under the ocean, in my neighbor's backyard. To reach this goal, SpaceX is planning to launch over 1 million satellites. Oh, that's just lovely. We are confident this is feasible, said Musk.
Does he have permission?
Of course he does. At least right now. This isn't all
he has
either.
to go ahead to do this.
Yeah. This isn't all either. Musk is also going to build an enormous terrestrial chip manufacturing facility that will create AI chips at a rate of 50 times greater than that of the entire world's output. These chips would be used in humanoid robots, electric cars, and orbital satellites. Before long, he argues about 10 billion robots per year will be needed to support all of this infrastructure. Okay. Geez, that's more than, there's only 8 billion people. They're going to need 10 billion robots. Where's the room for us? We don't need us. They got the robots, what I said.
Right.
That's what I said. All right.
We're training them for our jobs. People are volunteering to wear everything, and so they get the biometric data off of people to help make robots more human-like. So when you say you're training somebody for your position, like you're literally training these robots to like take your
Take
job.
your job. Took her jib. I was looking for that soundbite. I don't have that anymore. Took her jib. All right, moving on. All right, Representative Anna Paulina Luna offers update on Trump's UFO file release. If my article would load, I'd read it to you. I don't know what's going on. Let's try that again. There we go. Back in February, President Donald Trump made the unexpected decision to order federal agencies to begin releasing the government's files on aliens and UFO phenomenon. Since then, we've been keeping an eye out for any signs that this might actually be happening. Now, according to U.S. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who currently chairs the task force on the declassification of federal secrets, not only is it likely that this release will go ahead, but there may be some video footage included that defies explanation. Ooh, wow, yeah, I'm really excited. I think they're very serious about doing it, she told Jillian Michaels on Keeping It Real. As soon as we get the official on-paper declassification order, I want to do a press conference with all the information we are told and shown. That said, she also noted that the release is unlikely to include absolutely everything on UFOs. I think you're going to get a lot of cool stuff, but I don't think there's going to be the full admission, she said. The federal government's telling you what to believe. Yeah, we know, and your media and everything else. They'll release it, but they're not going to tell you what to make of it. Bull crap. I think they really are going to use the media to do that part of the job. A few days ago, reported that the U.S. government had seamlessly registered 2 new domain names. We talked about this last week, alien.gov and aliens.gov, presumably to host a website pertaining to the released files. Like I said, I feel like it's just going to be just like when they did the whole Epstein thing. I really do. I really feel like it's going to be a big bunch of nothing. Maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am. I hope we get some actual disclosure, but I have my doubts. Just call me pessimistic, but I just am. Moving on. All right. Because this is one of the reasons why. Because we just got people missing and dead that worked on these projects. Another official tied to America's scientific secrets vanishes. She sees the alarming web linking 6 mysterious deaths and disappearances. Oh, I'd read you this article, but I realize it's not going to let me. That's all right. We don't have to. Actually, I got a Facebook post I put up of it, too. I forgot it's Daily Mail. You look at it once, and then they go, it's one of their subscribed emails, and they let you look at it once, and then they go, oh, wait, no, you got to pay. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Mom. She liked the thing. So here's where we got. Here I posted this on Facebook. I should have put the picture up of that, but you can see the people down there. And there's another. I have a picture up on my Facebook personal page. This is from Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. Is now calling that a potential national security issue, warning that the work of several of them, these people missing, were doing is directly linked to theories about extraterrestrial spacecraft. Retired Air Force General Major General William Neal McCaslin, former commander at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I mean, that is where they took the Roswell pieces in the first place, in 47. Long tied to secret UFO programs, disappeared February 27th of this year from his Albuquerque home, left behind his phone, glasses, and wearable devices, and just gone. NASA aerospace engineer Monica Janico-Riza, 60, who worked directly under McCaslin on the advanced propulsion materials, vanished hiking in the Angles National Forest in June of 2025 and has never been found. Nuno Lorino, if I got that right, professor and director of the Plasma Science and Fusion Center at MIT, was killed in Brookline, Massachusetts in a shooting in late 2025. And Carl, Grillmeyer, I guess you get that right, 67-year-old Caltech astrophysicist shot to death in California home in February of 2026. We covered that story here, too. So my hopes, when they're killing people, then again, Tim Burchett's point of this is maybe it's not us doing it. The secret government program could be foreign agents in here making some of these people disappear, wanting to know our UFO secrets. Either way, it's a national security issue. But if they're not so concerned, it might be us doing it. And that makes me, like I said, not think a goddamn hope at all of having any real disclosure if they're still killing people over stuff, right? Or making them disappear. I mean, like I said, call me pessimistic, but just saying.
One would think, but, Call me crazy.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Moving on. All right. While this is all going on, I watched, I'm trying to remember the name of the Exorcist that was on the Sean Ryan show recently. It was a really popular episode of his. I did not agree with the guy on a lot of stuff. He thought aliens were all demons.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not in agreement. I think there's a
No.
lot going on.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't agree with him on a lot.
I can't sign behind that.
Yeah, he comes from his strict, exorcist, Catholic, priest point of view.
I mean, that's his beliefs. That's fine.
I'd talk to him. I'd love to have that guy on the show. Would I jump at that on a heartbeat? Yeah. I have a lot of people on here I don't agree with on everything, but I'm fascinated. I was fascinated by that interview. Well, this article I saw come up, Pope meets with delegation of exorcists over acute rise in occultism. This is what this guy was talking about a lot in Sean Ryan's show. Whether or not you happen to believe in the idea that people can become possessed by demonic entities, it's something that the Catholic Church still seems to take very seriously. This was emphasized recently when a delegation of priests from the International Association of Exorcists met with Pope Leo, what is this, the horrible numerals, the 17th? Is that it? Is he the 17th? To express their concerns about the current state of the world. And particularly, they warned him about the painful and increasingly widespread situation of people seriously disturbed by extraordinary actions of the devil as a result of frequently occult sex. Details is exactly how and where this is supposedly occurring, however, seem to be thin on the ground. According to the reports, the delegation wanted to try to alleviate the problem by asking the Pope to assign one or more additional exorcists to each diocese. When Pope Leo had previously described the work of the exorcists within the Catholic Church as necessary, it remains unclear whether or not he will actually take steps based on the organization's recommendations. In many countries, exorcisms themselves are seen as increasingly outdated and potentially dangerous. Annalise, or what was it? What was it now? Annalise? The one that they made a movie about, who died, that in Germany, I think it was the original case. In many countries, exorcisms themselves are seen as increasingly outdated and potentially dangerous, with the cases of mental illness being mistaken for demonic possession. Historically, people have actually died while undergoing such rituals. We've covered several. We've had several of those in the 10 years of this show, sadly. Some of them children. Somebody says, no, we should ban people from having... No, I think there are people definitely who need exorcisms. I've seen it. Be gone, Satan. I don't know. I think there is a purpose to it. It's I believe that an exorcism. Do I believe it has to be through the Catholic? I believe these things can be purged from people through exorcism, through the Roman Catholic tradition, but through other ways too. And I know other people disagree with me on that, or they go by their faith and only my faith can exorcise the demons. Whatever. I was attacked by something demonic, and I think it was demonic or some kind of other entity, and I belonged to no religion, had no exorcism. I just asked for, humbled myself before God. But there's some people, they need help, and obviously these guys are here in service, and I think there's a lot of good priests out there are trying to help people. They do know to look out for mental illness. I've had some on the show. I wouldn't say they're priests. They're not part of the official Catholic Roman Church. I've never had I'd love to have an official Catholic Roman exorcist like the guy on Sean Ryan show. I'd talk to him all night long. I mean, that'd be a 5-hour show. I'd want it to be. So interesting. But I got to move on. So I don't get sucked into that. All right, let me move this. All right, next up. And continuing story of this one, we had those. We talked about the hidden structures under the pyramid. Now, this is something I've always wondered and thought that this would be very much likely the case. Is they believe they've found a second sphinx beneath the Giza Plateau. The remarkable claim comes from Filipino Bondi and colleagues who you may remember last year found what they believe to be an extensive complex deep beneath the Giza Plateau. At this time, their discovery was met with some considerable skepticism, with criticisms arguing that the team's interpretation of their radar readings were flawed and that their claims were premature. Now the same researchers are back again. No cares for being premature. This time they claim that they have found a second sphinx beneath the existing one. According to the Biondi lines drawn from the pyramids to the sphinx point to a mirrored location under which previously undiscovered second sphinx is thought to be buried. We're finding pieces of geometrical correlation 100% of correlation in the symmetry, he says. We are very confident now this. We have a confidence about 80%. One long-running clue to the existence of a second sphinx is the dream stela found between the two paws of the existing sphinx, which shows two sphinx-like figures. And that's the thing. A lot of people have always believed there's a second sphinx. Ugh, sphinxter. I don't know, sphinxed. I always thought there's two. A lot of people thought there would be, and it would make sense. Like, you know, these two sphinx. I think they were jackal heads, maybe, or something else, and the head was redone. You know, thousands of years later, maybe. I don't know. It's a lot older than what they think it is, I believe, too. But I got to move on from this story. But we can keep watch. You know, we got hidden structures and a second sphinx. I guess try to say sphinx. All right. And then lastly, like I said, no shortage of weird stories for the World Wide Web of Weird. And like I said, it might be bad for the world, and this might be an example of it. Have you seen this one, Jamie? I didn't get to watch your Weird Wednesday. Sharks in the Bahamas are full of cocaine, caffeine, and painkillers. I just think of Quinn from Jaws. His eyes rolled over what? Like the cocaine on his snout. You're muted, Jamie. Oh, there you go.
On its snout.
There's something lurking in the pristine waters of the idyllic Atlantic island country, and it isn't just the local wildlife. Ocean appears to be riddled with traces of drugs and chemicals. According to a new study which involved taking samples of blood from 85 sharks near the Eleuthera, or what do you say, Eleutheria Islands in the Bahamas, is polluted with a disconcerting cocktail of pharmaceuticals. The results reveal that most of the animals showed traces of caffeine and over-the-counter painkillers such as ibuprofen, which some even had traces of illegal drugs such as cocaine. Researchers believe that most of these made their way to the ocean through waste dumping. When you take, dump painkillers down the toilet, stuff like that you should do. Or your cocaine when the cops show at your door. And you're dumping cocaine to get out of going to jail in the toilet. Guess what? The poor sharks are getting addicted. Now we're cokeheads because of you. Ultimately, it also will impact because we eat what comes out of the ocean. So then you eat the fish that have cocaine in them. I don't know, mercury and all other kinds of chemical poison. It's not just drugs. It's a lot of the chemicals and stuff and oil spills. And God, we're just horrible. We're just a horrible planet. We are literally, you wonder how much of that stuff ends up. I love seafood. I could just live off of fish, man. I'm a hamburger connoisseur. I love hamburgers, but if I had to give up beef, fine, let me have fish, But you can't eat half of it. Our oceans are completely polluted. So bad that we have cocaine sharks. I mean, they had Cocaine Bear, the movie. Now they can do Cocaine Shark.
They have cocaine hippos. They have cocaine dogs.
Actually, I think I saw that on Amazon Prime. I think there's already a Cocaine Shark movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's sharks on cocaine. I mean, they've done every kind of shark movie. They have. If I haven't seen it, it's out there. Or if it isn't, it's being made right now. As of this article, Cocaine Shark. So his eyes roll over. What?
Can you imagine?
Wonder why, Quinn. I mean, explain Jaws. That Jaws was cracked out, man. He had a grudge. He was high on something. PCP shark there. Taking hits, left and right. Didn't care. He still took down that boat. I'm just saying, cocaine sharks. I saw this. I'm like, yep, the world's going to crab. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Almost. We still got a couple minutes, man. I really got through that fast. I should have added a second article. I don't know. Keep your eye out, though. We'll definitely keep covering, before we go here to the commercial break, I do want to say we want to keep covering these missing people related to the aerospace industry and the military, like McCaslin and that. This is a bunch of crap. Tim Burchett's right. This is a national security issue, right? These guys have the secrets. And Anna Paulina Luna, they're going to give us, you can be a cheerleader all you want for it, but I don't. In the end, if I'm proven wrong on this, we come back next Sunday and there's like a big disclosure, or I don't know when it's going to happen, or a couple weeks from now, I will be happy to eat that humble pie. I will be happy. because I want disclosure. I do want it. I'm not trying to be critical because I don't want it. I want it.
Like
But
one
I'll
way or
never
the
trust my
other,
government.
you want the truth.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm at the point where whatever they tell me, I'm like, you're liars! Like I can't, like it just like, it's hard, it'd really be a lot to convince me they're actually trying to be open and honest, which I don't think, I don't know if there's anything that could convince me of that.
I don't think it'll
when,
ever be the full thing ever.
I mean, we still don't have the JFK files. Okay, we don't. We do not have all the JFK files. Were legislated how many years ago in the 90s to be fully released, everything, and we still don't have them. See why my confidence is lacking in them disclosing anything? Because they murdered a president, and I wouldn't say our government murdered a president. Alan Dulles, Alan Dulles, you say his name, Lyndon Johnson, and probably Mossad, and some mafia people involved. We got a lot of culprits here, a lot of bad people. And even though they're all dead now, they're still protecting the interests those people were working for that are still today. It's all, we're all living the consequences of it, I guess. So I have no trust in the government. That's it. End of the World Wide Web of Weird. But we will be back with our guest tonight, Jeremy Spillane, to talk about Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife. This is a book about his experiences with his in-laws after they passed, coming through and like an SLS camera, or I know he has a digital dowsing camera, or 8K 2 meters, and other experiences, and birds coming around. These are the experiences I told you. I get people come to me with these a lot. And I think it's my favorite stories to hear from people, how their loved ones connect from the other side, because I think it happens all the time, and a lot of people don't talk about it. And we need to talk about these experiences. We will when we come back after this short commercial break.
You were brought here for one purpose: necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest. We've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Jeremy Spillane. This is from him. This is from his own words. I'm Jeremy Spillane, married to Carolyn, 42 years, with 5 children and 6 grandchildren. We live in East Yorkshire, England. I've never written a book before. There was never anything that gripped me enough to make me embark on this massive amount of hard work that writing a book entails. At school, I got a grade A in my English language, O level, and a B in English literature. But by my very early 60s, I accepted that my life was pretty ordinary and simple. Nothing earth-shattering was ever going to happen to me. Then Caroline's parents died. Joan died first, then a few later is Roger. All of a sudden, I just had to write a book about what happened next. His book is Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife. We talk, like I say all the time, I've had a lot of people come to me there. I lived in a haunted house, or I saw a UFO, or I had seen a Bigfoot even. I mean, I've doing the show 10 years, that's the honor of having people to come tell me that. I feel it's a great privilege to have people do that. I feel very honored. The best story, though, when people tell me is the loved one comes across to them after they die. That's my favorite story. And I really got to get time to get into this book tonight. Where you can find it on Amazon. Jamie will be sharing the links in the comments. Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife by Jeremy Spillane. And later, we'll open up the phone calls. Like I said, if you had a loved one come through like this, what you're going to hear from Jeremy, and I'd love to hear from you. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let's bring Jeremy on in. Should be in. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. It's an honor to have you on. Why can't I get this to... There we go. I get rid of this. Wow, I am... There we
go.
Hello,
Hi, Jason. It's great to be with you both. It's lovely to be chatting to you tonight.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on. I want to get into this book. It's definitely, like I said, my favorite kind of experiences to hear. I've always been, my favorite movies are the Afterlife movies, like What Dreams May Come, Beetlejuice. Right. You know, it's like something I've always been fascinated with. I've had a lot of experiences since my childhood. So it's something I'm a big believer in. I believe in an afterlife. I don't belong to any particular one religion and everything. So, you know, sign me up. I'm all for it. I believe you're experiencing this. But I want to hear from you tonight, like how this all started for you.
Well, just before I say about that, I don't know if your viewers can see, but I've got the SLS camera next to me here to my side. And you might be able to see a green stick figure showing at the moment.
I do see it dancing down there.
That is Roger. I turned this equipment on about 9 hours ago. I've just got up from having a sleep, so I turned it on before I went to bed, and Roger showed up. Now, I should tell your viewers and listeners that I sort of messed up, and I thought your show was on yesterday because I misread my calendar. And I had the equipment on yesterday, and Roger wasn't showing up at all. I should have realized
like you do.
then. I should have realized then that he knew that I wasn't on yesterday and he didn't show up, but he's there today. So just if people see the stick figure there, that's Roger, my spirit of my father-in-law, showing up, and he's the one that's led all this. So if I can just go back then to beginning of what you asked me. So Caroline and I have been married 40 odd years, as you said, and I knew Joan and Roger really well. They were my parents-in-law, and they were like a second set of parents to me. And over the years, Caroline and I had had lots of people within our family who had died. And after each person had died, after their funeral, we never had any hint from anyone that there was anything after they'd gone. You know, there was no signs from anyone that there was life after death. But this all changed in 2017 when Joan, my mother-in-law, died. She died really suddenly. She and Roger were at home, sat in their living room, and apparently Joan was just getting up out of her chair and she collapsed with catastrophic heart failure, didn't have time to say goodbye. And within a day or two, literally just 1 or 2 days of her dying, Caroline and I were getting signs at our house that she was still around. So we had a number of televisions in the house, and these just started turning on by themselves. Particularly the one in our bedroom, we would be asleep at night and suddenly the television would turn on, and we had a bedside light. Suddenly that would turn on, and something told us that it was Joan, that it was Caroline's mother, who was giving us the sign that she was still there.
Yeah.
So we were just amazed, and we loved the signs when we realized it was her. It was just phenomenal. So we told Roger, Caroline's dad, Joan's husband, we told him, of course, about these signs that we thought were from Joan. But Roger was an avowed skeptic. He just didn't believe in life after death. He always told me that, you know, when you die, that's it. There's nothing more. And he lived his life totally on that basis. He never showed any hint of believing in life after death. So he just thought we were nutcases when we said this is signs from Joan. But Joan and Roger had actually met, you know, sort of decades before, and they'd fallen in love, and they met through their church. So they had been religious when they were younger. And Roger had stopped believing in it once his 2 daughters arrived. My wife, Caroline, she's the oldest, and she's got a younger sister, Alison. They were just the 2 girls. But anyway, Roger had stopped believing in all that his religion taught him. And he just thought it was too unbelievable, the concept of life after death. But I think Joan still believed in things like that. So I had a similar background to Roger, actually. I was brought up Catholic, and then as a teenager, I stopped believing. I stopped going to church with my dad. My dad was the Catholic. My mum wasn't Catholic. So me and my 2 older brothers, we used to go to Catholic church every week, and each of us stopped going when we were teenagers. And I don't know quite what their beliefs were, but personally, I stopped believing in life after death because, like Roger, it just seemed too unbelievable. It was too incredible. It seemed like more than a fairy tale. It just didn't seem possible. So at school, I was taught, mainly science subjects, and that's my leaning. I thought I was heading to go to university and become some sort of scientist or engineer or whatever. And as you know, most scientists in the West, or the majority view, seems to be that everything supernatural, paranormal isn't real. And scientists seem to have the opinion that if you can't get it in a lab and you can't measure it, you can't see it, then it doesn't exist. And that was my view, that life after death was just too bonkers, really.
So I ask people this because my father-in-law shares a similar view. While his wife, she's a devout Christian. It's an interesting dynamic, right? But what is it that you at that time you thought? Then just that when you die, just you cease to exist and it's just blackness, or it's over?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's certainly what Roger believed, that when you've gone, that's the end. You sort of literally cease to exist in every shape or form. So yeah, you sort of effectively, it's like a black hole. That's it, and there's no trace of you left. And that's what I believed. And I still believed in a God. I believe that the universe had been created by some sort of God, whoever God was. I wasn't sure, but
That's interesting that you
yeah,
believed in a higher power, but you didn't believe in an afterlife.
yeah. The universe just seemed too incredible, too complicated and beautiful to have been created by some sort of accident. And this Big Bang theory just seems like nonsense to me. It's just a way for scientists to come up with some sort of supposed solution, you know. And how can a Big Bang happen from nothing prior to there being anything? Effectively, that's just like another way of saying God has made it, in my opinion. You know, there
much more complicated way, but yeah, much more complicated way.
Exactly, and I think scientists just don't. A lot of them don't want to admit that there's a God. But I've been reading a book recently, a proof of the existence of God, and apparently lots of scientists do end up coming around to the belief that there is a God, and it's all pretty well laid out in this book that so many scientists over the years have started off being skeptics and not believing in God, and when they look into the details, they realize that life itself is just too complicated. There's no way it could happen by accident. DNA is such a complicated molecule that wouldn't have come about just by chance.
Yeah, I'd say DNA is one of the biggest, I think, evidence to me, you know, besides the structure, you know, the universe. So they start getting down to the fundamentals of the reality, like the chances of the universe to exist itself are pretty low, you know.
That's right.
For just existence itself, you know, there's some kind of, like, I don't believe, like I said, I don't belong to any particular religion, but I had my own experiences make me believe in a higher power or something out there, you know, that shapes this reality or makes this material world that we believe is material, at least, happen, you know. But a lot of times when I run across people like my father-in-law, he has this belief. He don't believe in God. You know, he don't believe in a higher power. He believes it's nothing. You're just the flesh, and your brain is the mechanism making you work. And you die. No God created you. Everything happened just because it happened. You know, I don't know. I don't know if that's how he actually, you know, how it's viewed,
like
but you know, it's along those lines.
And worm food.
Yeah. You know, it's like we've talked about it, and you know, I know other people too are kind of that. You know, I don't meet as many people that are really like full on atheists as they say. You know, some people say they're atheists, and you hear, you know, well, like you believe in a higher power. Well, that puts you in your own. Like, there's a lot of forms of atheism, I could say. You know, or then there's agnostic, where you question. But when you get down to it, it seems like you had these when you first. What was one of the first signs you think? You know, you said was with the TV turning on. Was that the first thing you?
Yeah, that was it. So literally within maybe 1 or 2 days at the most, televisions in our house started turning on, and some people might say, "Oh, you've just got a faulty television," but the house where we lived at that time, we had. I think it was 3 televisions, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in our bedroom, and any of them would turn on. And as I say, the one in our bedroom would turn on while we were asleep at night, and it would wake us up. It would come on loud, and if you think that's faulty, then the other ones in the house had started coming on as well. So you'd perhaps walk into the kitchen, and the television would turn on as you walked into the room, and it was just too much of a coincidence.
Was there anything when it would turn on that was on the TV that was like also what it would turned on the TV was like meaningful at all?
No, I don't remember any particular meaningful thing. Sorry?
Or a specific time that it's coming on?
No, we couldn't put a pattern to it, except that it was when we were around in that room or heading into that room. That was the only pattern that I remember that we saw. But as I say, the bedside light would suddenly turn on as well in the middle of the night, and it had never done that before. So
like it wanted to be noticed.
Yeah, it's It was just too incredible. And my favourite sign of all, actually, from Joan, and I'm certain it was a sign, was a wildlife sign from a bird. And that was, I think that was 3-4 days after she'd died. So Caroline and I and our pet spaniel, who was very important to us at that time, we were walking around a local castle, an ancient castle near where we lived in West Yorkshire. We didn't live near Joan and Roger. We were about 30 odd miles from them. So we were walking around this castle just 3 or 4 days after Joan had died. And we were walking around the earth mound that surrounds this ancient castle. You know, it's a steep defensive mound, massive around the castle, covered in grass. And halfway down the slope of this mound was a tree. And in it, I could see a bird of prey. And I've always been keen on birds, and I had a reasonable knowledge of them. And I said to Karen, I'm just going to walk towards that bird in the tree and see what sort of bird it is. And as I walked towards it, this female kestrel, which is a small bird of prey, about the size of a pigeon, it flew out the tree towards the three of us, and it circled us twice at very low level in quite tight circles. And then it went back to the tree and then perched there again. And I know that that's not normal behavior for a wild bird of that type. And people have said to me, well, could it have been eyeing up our dog, thinking that's, you know, a future meal? But because it's such a small bird of prey, and our dog was a medium-sized dog, weighed, you know, sort of 30-odd pounds, quite a heavy dog, these birds normally eat things like little mice or what have you. So there's no way it would weigh up our dog as a potential meal. So I knew straight away that was a sign from Joan. And since then, we've had other signs, you know, the common, I say common ones, but it's well known, things like butterflies and that. We've had quite a number of amazing signs from Joan with butterflies. We've had all the feathers and things like that, feathers appearing in our house when there's no windows open, that type of thing. So we've had all those things. But anyway.
That's the thing, when you just know. And you can't explain it. It's just a knowing.
Absolutely. And the thing is that with these signs, if you, like you say, you know, and you sort of accept it and you thank the person for it, you get more of them. But people who are skeptical, who think, oh, that's just some weird coincidence, but they think that can't be a sign, then they stop getting them. And that's what we've read, and that's what we've found, and that seems to be the case. So we told Roger about all these signs, and as I say, he didn't believe in life after death, and he just thought we were nutcases, and he didn't know what to say. He didn't actually say anything. He just looked at us with a strange look on his face, you know, half smile, half grin sort of thing, and just didn't know what we were on about. And so I'm confident that Roger hadn't had any signs of his own.
Well, I was wondering. I mean, he might have. He just, I think, honestly, I think there's some people that just, you know, are probably very frustrated to the other side, the spirit realm, that just don't see it. They don't see it. They don't recognize the signs at all. What I find interesting is for somebody like you that, you know, before this event, you had no belief in the afterlife, but it seems like you pretty quickly felt it was her. Like you and your wife both were like, you know, I don't know how many times the TV turned on or the lamp turned on, but it seems like you were pretty quickly there.
Yeah, my wife Caroline, she was skeptical. She's more skeptical than me, I think. I was always open to persuasion, as Roger was. It's just that Roger never saw any proof of his own that there was any sort of life after death. He was a book lover. He was a very highly educated man. He'd graduated from Oxford University and he'd become a teacher, and then his career went in further directions, you know, other things. But education, knowledge, and books, they were his three loves in life. So he read books on other religions, and he was always searching for the right religion for him, but he never found it. So he died not believing in life after death. And Caroline was similar in that view. You know, I don't think she believed in life after death, but she's not religious at all. And we, as I say, I was brought up Catholic, and I was open to persuasion, but I hadn't seen any proof myself throughout my life. So I'd spent 40 odd years not believing in life after death, but I would have believed had I spoken to someone who had first-hand experience, or had I seen it for myself, but I just hadn't seen it. As I say, with all the deaths in our family, we didn't have more than average, but just over the years, inevitably family members die, and we'd never had any signs whatsoever. We'd even been, Caroline and I had been with Caroline's grandmother when she died, with Roger's mother. So we lived near her, and at this time Joan and Roger lived near London, so they were a long way away, and we were with Caroline's grandmother when she died. She'd been ill for years with arthritis, all sorts of other problems, and she was an elderly lady, and we were sat on her bed as she was it looked like she was possibly going to die shortly. She'd had a few incidents where it looked like she'd die and then she'd pull through, but this time we were with her, and there were a couple of carers as well, and we were all just sat on her bed reminiscing about things, and she was sort of almost unconscious, but she wasn't in a coma, but she wasn't talking. She had her eyes shut.
But she had a number of years of illness, right? Is what you said.
Yeah, she did, and we were with her, and hers was a very peaceful death, and
but it's like Joan was very quick, right? So
Joan was really sudden. So Joan did have a heart problem, but she didn't really make much of it. But it was Roger who had loads of illness throughout his life, lots of medical issues, and he'd got through them all. So it was always felt that Roger would die first. I'm sure he thought.
So this was a shock.
Yeah, so when Joan died before him, it was a major shock, and because it was such a sudden death, she had no time to say goodbye, and I'm confident that that's the reason she gave us all the signs, because she hadn't been able to warn anyone that she was going.
I think that's one of the most common factors in these situations I've come across with people who've had these kind of communications, because like you said, there's a lot of people that pass away and there's nothing. It's silence. There's nobody hears or sees anything. I've had deaths in the family, but I had my grandmother come through, and she had a prolonged illness, but hers was Alzheimer's. So it was a question of consciousness and what she understood or knew. And she had found her ways to come through to me. But the sudden deaths, I've had people come to me and tell me these stories of these kind of experiences. And I honestly think it is because you didn't get to say goodbye. It's a shock to everybody around involved. And it's like some things need to be tied up, and some people need to be let know that this person's all right. It seems to be a very common scenario.
I get signs from my dad all the time. I've gotten evidence. I've gotten that scrying stuff. I've gotten signs from him when I was asking for it, just undeniable. That wouldn't mean anything to anybody else, but it was like there for me.
Oh, it's always like a personal meaning.
Undeniable.
Right?
Always when I need him the most.
Well, the animal thing, I witnessed that when my wife's grandmother died. Mimi, they had this thing about the red cardinals. And when the phone call came to tell us that she had died, right there while we're getting we're in the kitchen, she just got the call. We both look out the window, and sitting right out front of the window was the red cardinal. Really? It was the timing of it and everything. My wife just looked at it, and we both looked at each other and didn't even say anything. We knew.
Yeah, that's it. Like you say, people do, especially if they die suddenly, they do give you signs. And like you say, Jamie, it's don't you? It's such a personal message, and you and the person who's died, between the two of you, that's a really personal message, and it's got to be a sign. It's definitely a sign, and you know that. But other people might think, oh, well, that's just a strange coincidence. But and that's how the spirits work, isn't it? They give you that really personal thing, and it might be something very mundane, but that's their message to you, and that means everything, doesn't it? It's such an important thing. So
it does. It takes so much fear away. It gives you such a confidence and such a whole other way of just looking at things.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just so incredible what I've found with all this. And as you said, Jason, instantly I knew that this was Joan. We both, Karen and I, knew it was Joan, and it was just, we'd never had anything like that before, and the signs were just so meaningful and happened so suddenly, and so many of them, that we instantly knew that was Joan. And instantly then I knew that there is life after death, and that was the evidence that I'd never seen for the last 40 odd years, and this was it. This was the evidence, and I was just so amazed that Joan was going to those lengths to show us. But as I say, Roger didn't believe us, and I still don't think he would have had any signs himself, because had he had signs from Joan, it might have been too much, and with his own heart problems, he could have had a heart attack and died. So
that might be true. That's
I still believe that he probably didn't have these signs, because if he had had any, he would have. When we talked about our signs, he would have sort of known, oh yes, I've had something, and he would have understood. But he didn't seem to understand what we were saying. And Karen's sister Alison as well. When we told her the same things that we'd had, she didn't say anything. So I'm pretty sure she hadn't had any. So I'm confident that Joan gave us the signs, because somehow Joan knew that we would be receptive to them, and we would actually welcome them, whereas so many people in this life seem to be scared of all this sort of thing, and they wouldn't either talk about it, or they would just put it out their minds and ignore it, and then they, as we just said, they wouldn't get any more. Then the spirit would give up trying to communicate. But Joan knew we would be receptive, and therefore she gave us the signs, and then we welcome them, and we just love them. So yeah, this all, as I say, Roger didn't know what to make of it. He thought we were nutters, and so we didn't talk to him anymore about these signs, but we kept getting them. And then everything changed when in 2022, then Roger died himself, but that was a more predictable death. All his medical illnesses had caught up with him, and the last year or more of his life, he was in and out of hospital. He was in hospital a lot, but when he wasn't there, he was at home, and Karen and I were trying to help him to live at home, not have to go to a care home or anything. And then obviously we got COVID, as everyone else did, and that was a nightmare. But luckily, Roger didn't get COVID, but he had all sorts of other issues. And so at the end, the last week of his life, he was in hospital, and Caroline was actually with him when he died in the hospital. She was holding his hand, because the nurse had told her, that she perhaps ought to come to the hospital, and we hadn't realised that he was that close to death, and even Caroline hadn't understood what the nurse was saying to her when she said, you might want to come down. She didn't make out it's anything urgent, but Caroline went to the hospital and was with her dad, and he was sort of had his eyes shut and didn't seem to be communicating. He wasn't in a coma, but he wasn't talking. And Karen held his hand, and then he died, and Karen rang me, and so I and Karen's sister and her husband Colin, the three of us went down to be with Roger once he'd died, and be with Caroline, and so that was the end of him. And then incredibly, within a day or two of Roger dying, then suddenly Karen and I were getting a whole load more signs similar to what Joan had given, but different. So we knew they were Roger, because they weren't the same as what Joan had given us. So we still had electrical and electronic signs, but this time we had things in our house, like our lights flashing, turning off, and circuits turning off, and in our fuse box, the circuit breakers, the resettable fuses, they would suddenly trip out with quite a bang sometimes, and occasionally the whole power to our whole house would go off, and we knew that was Roger. As I say, they weren't the same signs as Joan, but obviously spirits can manipulate electronics and
sounds like a lot more annoying signs than shutting your power off. Right,
yeah, that's right. And when it tripped out, if the whole power went off to the whole house, it went with quite a bang. This fuse box is in our living room, and if we were in the same room as that, it goes with a whacking great bang, and it sounds like something breaking almost. And we knew that was Roger, so I would reset the circuit, and occasionally the circuit would trip again, and then perhaps it wouldn't trip at all, and I could never explain why it had tripped. It wasn't an obvious conventional fault, and so straight away knew that was Roger. And it all makes sense because Roger didn't believe in life after death, and then suddenly he dies and he finds himself in an afterlife, and he thinks, blimey, I was totally wrong, and he needs to tell us, hey, I was wrong, and I'm giving you a sign to show you that I'm here. And so what Joan had started just over 4 years previously, suddenly then Roger takes over the baton, and he carries on with what Joan had started in the way of signs and everything. And that was incredible. And it's just in line with how Joan and Roger were in life. So Joan she was slightly less forthcoming than Roger. She might start something and then Roger would take it over, then Roger would carry on with it. And this was just the same with these signs. So Joan starts with the signs to us, and then Roger thinks, hang on, I'll carry this on and I'll pursue this. So it then became Roger's project to give us all these signs. So and we had things, mobile phones, Roger could do various things with the phones and that.
Really?
Yeah, so if I just go back, so within, I think it was 2 days after Roger had died, Caroline and I, we went to the cemetery where Joan was buried, and Roger was going to be joining her, when he had his own funeral. So we went to the cemetery because we had to retrieve some stuff from Joan's grave prior to Roger's funeral. So there were things that we'd put on the grave that needed to be out of the way for when the funeral happened, and then we could sort the grave out later once they were both buried there. So we went to the cemetery 2 days after Roger had died and had a wheelbarrow because there was a potted plant, a rose in a pot, and this needed retrieving along with a whole load of other odds and ends. So we went there, and while I was pushing the wheelbarrow, Caroline was filming me on her iPhone as a video. And the reason we were doing this, we'd started filming on the iPhones a few months prior because before Roger had died, we'd been at another local cemetery where we didn't have anyone buried, no relatives buried. We were just walking our dog, and Caroline had seen this blackbird having a bath in a little gravestone where the vase for the flowers would go in a gravestone. There was the little round hole there full of water, and this blackbird was having a bath, just splashing around. And Caroline thought, oh, that looks lovely, and she thought she'd film it because it just looked like a nice thing to see, and she wanted to have a record of it. So she filmed it, and then after she'd filmed it and had a look at the video, it looked like there was a light anomaly on this video. And for quite some time, we thought that was something strange, something supernatural, if you like. But actually later, I realized it was just a stray reflection in the camera lens. And so it was totally explicable. But whatever the reason, that made us start filming with our iPhones whenever we were at Joan and Roger's cemetery or anywhere where we thought something might happen. We took video. So we're at the cemetery 2 days after Roger died. I'm pushing the wheelbarrow down through the cemetery. Caroline's filming me. And then when we get to the grave, I'm dealing with this potted plant, putting it in the wheelbarrow. And I put this rose into the wheelbarrow. And it wasn't until we got home and we're looking at the video, there were a few things that we noticed. So while Caroline's filming it, all of a sudden the video goes to half speed and it starts filming at half speed, like slow motion. And Caroline hadn't selected that. So I'm certain that Roger had. And then when I studied this video, and it wasn't for some weeks that I was looking at the video in great detail, I suddenly noticed all these flies flying around this rose. And I thought, blimey, that's odd. I don't remember seeing all these flies when I was actually there. I'm sure if they'd been there physically, I would have noticed them. So
I can't stand them.
Yeah, I'm not dead keen on flies. I'm not scared of them or anything, but I just would have noticed swarms of flies around it, which I never saw. So I'm looking at these things on the video in detail. I'm zooming in, and I realise they're not physical flies. They're sort of like little specks of light flying around, and you can see they do seem to have some sort of wings on them, but they're only small, about the size of a small fly, and they're like dots of white light with bright white wings, or some of them are just black with black wings, and they're going in and out of the soil, and they're flying around in strange ways. And as they're flying, they'll suddenly disappear, instantly they're gone, and there's no trace of them. And if you zoom in and follow them, they just sort of come and they go, and there's dozens of these things. And as I say, they're going into and out of the soil, and it's most bizarre, and I couldn't work out what they were. But then I heard about things called spirit flies, and I'd never been able to find out much about them. But as far as I can work out, I think these are each one could be a spirit, and they're perhaps spirits of relatives who have come for Roger before his funeral, to welcome him to the afterlife or whatever. So I'm confident that Roger had made this phone record at half speed. And as I say, we've had other things that have happened. Some months after he died, actually, Caroline was talking on her mobile phone at Roger's house. She was talking to the estate agent, because the house was being put on the market, being sold. And while she's talking to this estate agent on her mobile phone, suddenly, apparently, the phone line went really bizarre. It was all crackly and all sorts of weird noise. And the estate agent on the other end of the phone said to Caroline afterwards, she said, "That was weird. That was really spooky. What was going on there?" And Caroline couldn't explain it. And we're pretty sure that was some sort of input from Roger, and they were talking about a potential sale and what the price was. And it was Roger chipping in, we think. And there was another thing. I had my iPhone was Caroline's old one. She'd given me her old one when she got a new one. And just after Roger had died, suddenly this phone went haywire, and it crashed, and it had never done that before, and it's never done it since, but it just went absolutely bonkers, and it was just totally weird. And we've had other signs, and another great sign from Roger, again, was just a couple of months after he died. Caroline was working in the town where we lived. We'd moved over to be near Joan and Roger, near to Roger once Joan had died. So we moved over to East Yorkshire, and we're in a town just about 3 or 4 miles from where Roger lived. And Caroline's at work in the opticians where she worked at the time. And I told her to look out the window at her work. I was at home, and there was a funeral cortege going past our house. I knew it would be going past her shop in a few minutes' time, and it was horses pulling a hearse, and it was really beautiful. I said to Caroline, look out the window in a few minutes and you'll see a lovely cortege with horses and a funeral procession. So she looked out the window at her work, and she was with a colleague, and they were talking about her dad's death and funeral and stuff. And at her work, they had the digital assistant, Alexa, playing music, and it was playing hits from the 80s. And so all these songs are playing. And then as the hearse goes past their shop, suddenly the song that they had at Roger's funeral, and also it was at Joan's funeral, starts playing. And that's a song from the 60s. And it's The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. And so suddenly that's in the middle of a hits from the 80s sort of playlist, and suddenly this song plays on the personal assistant, and that was just some phenomenal message again from Roger, or maybe from Joan.
Yeah, I've talked about that. I've had people tell me these stories where that's Alexa, where it does it on a radio. Where some DJ decided at this moment in this time somehow to play that song at this perfect time. Yeah. Right. So, but when it comes to like the digital stuff like that, the media, we've done live Spirit Box on here, which is not really Spirit Box. At the time I'm using an app. right? And I haven't done it in a long time. I have problems with my system and that. We've had, we've done it. We've done other people's devices. We have Tony Rothman. He has his own device. It's not an app. It's a whole other system. It's really called what is it, SpiritCom? But either way, I always say any of these devices are possible for these things to communicate through, because I've seen countless times from stories from others and my own experiences that they can manipulate anything that's an electronic device.
Yeah. Now, you're right, and the spirits can manipulate electronics comparatively easily. I think it's probably the easiest thing that they can do as far as I've been able to work out. But as you say, how can the spirit make that song play at that moment? How is it
Alexa makes it a lot easier for them. Alexa, play, they can hear it, right?
Is that what they're doing? Are they telling Alexa to play a certain song?
There's a show called Ghosts. And the American version has a character named Alberta, and these ghosts all have different ways. One can like touch things, like so he can get on the iPad or whatever and actually trade stocks or whatever. But one, Alberta, she can be heard her singing, and Alexa can hear her, so she can tell Alexa to play a song. And that's what I keep thinking about when you're telling me this story. It's just like maybe Alexa could hear her, hear Joan or Roger call out that song. But like I said, these things have happened for people from radio stations. That's a scheduled program of songs being played. I
would have commercials to where it was copying everything I was doing, from like I was going to get up and get a piece of cold pizza from the refrigerator. And I don't know if it was Friends or what on, but every movement I was making correlated with what was like going on. Like they're saying it on the TV, down to when I reached in and grabbed the pizza, they grabbed the pizza. I'm like, this is really trippy.
Well, I always say for spirits like that, like the Alexa thing or whatever, but I also believe in a higher power.
Like they want me to know they're watching. I just laugh.
Well, that's the thing. I believe in like a higher power, the force or God or whatever you call it. And I always say it talks to you through synchronicity, things that are impossible that were mind-bending reality, where it makes something so synchronistic happen. There's no way, it can just be coincidence. But it's impossible to think about how that would happen, how that could be made to happen, right? I call that the force or God or whatever talking to you, the spirit talking to us, get our attention.
Yeah, just going back to that synchronicity business. Before we moved over to be near Roger in East Yorkshire, we lived in West Yorkshire, Karen and I, and we had a fish and chip shop business. And this is where Joan gave us these various signs with the televisions. That's where we were living at the time. But one day, Caroline was in the shop, just serving customers and what have you. And this woman walked in. Caroline had never met her before, never seen her, and she never saw her again. And this woman walked in and just came up to Caroline and said to her, "There's no such thing as coincidence." And then I think she just left. And like you were saying, Jason, it's just one of those things. It's just absolutely weird. And she told Caroline this just at a time when Caroline was thinking about all these things and coincidence.
Right. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's just really strange, isn't it? And somehow this woman seemed to know what Caroline was wondering or thinking, and she gives her an answer and then just disappears. It's walks out the shop, and it's just very, very peculiar. But as you say, it's all these things are planned or whatever. There's so much. Like
I said, I call it the force. It communicates to you through these things that are mind-bending reality. It bends reality to communicate to you. I don't know another way to describe it. Makes things happen. Like that woman walk into your, man, I want to go to London and order some fish and chips, man, or wherever, somewhere in England. I got to get fish and chips one of these days, just to say it. But walk in there and say that nothing's a coincidence, to do that that's the force, baby. That's God. That's the spirit, whatever you want to call it. But I see evidence, and that's the thing. I think these things happen to a lot of people all the time. They don't see it. But once you do start noticing it, it happens more and more.
That's right.
It realizes it.
Yeah, if you notice it and you sort of pick up on it and you sort of say to the spirit or whatever, or just you're positive about it, then more happens, doesn't it? But if you're negative and you push it out your mind, or you you try and dismiss it, and you think, oh no, that's not a sign. And if you're scared of it, then it doesn't happen. It stops happening, and that's how most people are, I think, isn't it? I think that's it. If you're open and welcome it, then you get more of it. But if you're not, then it just stops. And you can imagine spirits just giving up, can't you? You know, they're trying to give someone a sign, you know, here on this earth, and if they see the person they're trying to give a sign to is all scared or trying to rebuff that sign, then they'll think, oh, hang on, I'm not going to pursue that anymore.
I think one of the
responding and making time for them and communicating with them and coming back to the conversations and things, they're going to, you know, call their buddies in and have a good old time.
I think for some people that grieve, though, too, can block that kind of communication. Like if the grief is too heavy and too much, it's hard for the spirit to get through to them.
That's right. Now, that's the thing with Joan and Roger. You know, we have a big problem, as I know so many people do, when you try and talk to your own family about these things. And I think most of our family, or a lot of them, they won't either talk about it, or they'll sort of try and dismiss it, and they sort of, I think a lot of them think that we're a bit cranky, and they just won't think about it, or they won't talk about it. And some do, but some don't. Like my older brother, I just can't talk to him about any of this stuff, which I think is slightly peculiar, but that's the way people are, isn't it? And I think he is still a Catholic, and all that Joan and Roger have done, really, I say all, it's a massive thing, but they've proved that the afterlife is real. We can see them there in the afterlife, and they're just confirming that the religions, the major religions, are correct. You know, their concept that you die and then you live
at least
again.
In one part. In one part, there is an afterlife. You got that?
Yeah, that's right. That's it. So Joan and Roger are confirming that the religions are correct in that respect, and you know, so they're not sort of saying anything that's really scary as such, because most people in this on earth, you know, a lot of people have some sort of religious background to them, even if they reject it. But Joan and Roger are just saying, yes, the religion is right. There is life after death, and I'm here, and I'm showing you this, and it's a pretty innocuous message to me, but I still puzzle why people won't sort of talk about it.
Some people, it's like it's just they don't have any interest in it at all. It seems like, and I'm like, how do you not? This, you know, everybody's going there. We all share one thing: we're all going to die.
Absolutely.
You know, and we're all going there. Aren't you a little bit curious? Like I've been curious all since my earliest memories. You know, like what happens when you die. I remember the first time I lost a childhood friend, and I actually think I saw her. I saw her spirit after her death. I was only 5 or 6, maybe 5 or 6. I was in kindergarten, and you know, I remember conceptualizing at a very young age that I could die. You know, so it became very important to me in my mind. You know, what is that? What happens? And I never let go. That's why I've always been fascinated. Like I said, all my favorite movies have to do with the afterlife. Like, you know. Yeah,
well, just like you, Jason, I've spent all my life always wondering to myself, you know, what happens when we die? And as I say, I was looking for proof, but I never saw it till.
And maybe that's why they came to you, you know, because you would be open to it because of that. You weren't totally ready to. There's some people that I think are like there's some wall or something in them psychologically that they're adamantly against the idea or thinking about it. But some people like you know, it's not that you don't you don't believe, but it's because you haven't been presented the evidence yet. You're open to it.
Yeah, I still suspect that probably most people must wonder, you know, what happens when we die. I can't believe that everyone's going through life not thinking about, you know, what happens when we go. And but I don't understand why they're too scared to sort of talk openly about it.
It might be too much for us. Like it might just be too much for their mind to even fathom, to think about. That it's easier just to say, we just black out. That's all.
Yeah, maybe. So certainly here in the West, the last few hundred years, we've become so materialistic, haven't we? And I suppose that's maybe how most people in the West live their life these days. They just sort of think that I'm a physical thing, and then when I go, then it's all over, and they don't want to, like you say, they don't want to think any more about it beyond that.
I think we've shown signs in the West of we have, during the very beginning of the modern industrialization of this country and the beginning of science, in a sense, modern science. We also had spiritualist movement at the time develop, at that time, early 1900s. And I think it was because people at that time could see, you're discovering all this great things with science, but it still doesn't answer these questions. And spiritualism kind of died away for a little while. It had a really big movement and went away, but it never did really go away. We've had mediums for thousands of years, we've had in this country since spiritualist movement. I mean, it never totally died. I mean, you have a lot more interest now. They call it the New Age movement, whatever. But either way, it's the hunger there for the people like you and me is there. There are plenty of people, but there is a segment of population, 50-50, I don't know what the percentage is, that just don't want to look at it or don't see it or don't believe it, or either way, they're not interested. And like you, it always is fascinating me how you can go through your life and not be interested is one thing that is going to happen to you, for sure. Guaranteed. Death and taxes, man.
Yeah, that's it. I was reading, I've read, a number of things about the spiritualists. So in the 1800s, apparently this organization in England was set up called the Society for Psychical Research, and they were looking into trying to find proof of life after death. And that seems to be around the time. Sorry?
Some very famous people involved, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's around the time that the spiritualist church seemed to come about. And apparently in the First World War, when there were so many people dying, then everyone was turning to looking into life after death, and they were wanting something, and it became very popular at that time. But this Society for Psychical Research, then they were set up to look for evidence of life after death. And I got them to try and I tried to get them interested in looking at the signs we were getting from Roger, and we did have one of their investigators come up. So once I was taking all these videos, once I'd got the equipment, which I haven't really described yet, but I got the equipment, and Roger loved electronic gadgets, so it's totally appropriate that he's showing himself on these electronic gadgets, the ghost hunting gadgets. But this was a serious search to prove life after death, and as I say, I got the equipment eventually after Karen persuaded me, and Roger shows up on this device virtually every time I turn it on. So I got the Society for Psychical Research. I tried to get them interested, and eventually one of their investigators came up to see us and all the evidence we'd got. He spent the weekend with us, and he was sort of slightly convinced, but not completely. But I said, what would it take for you to accept that this SLS camera really is seeing a genuine spirit? Because all the skeptics say that this camera is just, picking up on things in the room, and it's just being fooled. It thinks there's something there when there isn't. And so I said to this investigator, what would it take for you to accept that this camera is seeing a real spirit? And he was a PhD student at Northampton University in the UK doing parapsychology. And he said, well, if we could see the spirit, in a totally neutral room, showing up, say, on a totally plain white wall, then I would accept that really is seeing a spirit. So that's what we eventually did. So I went down to his university over Easter a couple of years ago, and we met up. He had booked a room, totally plain white walls and everything. And then eventually Roger did show up on the camera, and he was there for about 4 minutes on this totally plain white wall. And at this point, this SPR investigator accepted, yes, that is a spirit that we're seeing. And I knew that was Roger. So that was the scientific credibility I needed in the book that I ended up writing about Joan and Roger. But it's all been such an amazing thing. But as I say, Roger loved electronic gadgets, and one way or the other, he persuaded me through Caroline. She was persuading me, why don't I get some ghost hunting equipment? Because since Joan's death, I'd been watching all the ghost hunting programs,
That's what I
reading
wondered.
hundreds
Yeah.
of books, and I'd, not believing in anything until Joan died. Then suddenly, I'm having to sort of quickly do all my research and try and educate myself into life after death and everything to do with it. And I'd always been frightened of ghosts as a child. I used to have nightmares when I was young, and I used to be worried. And my parents used to say, "Don't worry, there's no such thing as ghosts." But I could have scared myself, and I still don't like the dark. So when I started watching these ghost hunting programs after Joan died, and they all seemed a bit gimmicky to me, and they're all done at night. And Caroline said to me, "Why don't I get some equipment?" And I said, "No, I'd be scared." And I just resisted for ages. And then about 6 months after her dad died, I said, "Okay, I'll get some equipment, but I'm only going to be looking for your parents. I'm not going to look for anyone else. I don't want any evil attachments or anything like that." And I said, "I'll just get the equipment and see if I can find your dad, your mum and dad as spirits." And that's what happened. I got the equipment, and as soon as I turned the equipment on, then suddenly Roger's there straight away, showing up as a spirit, and he's been doing it ever since. So it's over 3 years now since I got this equipment. And then
I can still see him dancing in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, he wasn't here yesterday when I turned it on, so he obviously knew that
it wasn't the time.
day. But today he's been there all the time, and he's still there. So.
We got to go to a commercial break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about more about this equipment that you're using, like the SLS camera, the K2 meter, the digital dowsing camera.
Okay.
We'll get into all that and open up the phone lines when we come back from the short commercial break, guys. And we come back, just wait till we come back to call in. If you've had a personal experience with a loved one coming through, or you feel you've established communication with a loved one after their passing, I'd love to hear from you tonight. Compare notes with our guest tonight, Jeremy Spillane, and talking about his book, Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife, after this short commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift. A refreshing and fun read, I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Jeremy Spillane. We're talking about his book, Joan and Roger, Alive in the Afterlife. This is, his in-laws passed away, if you're just joining us now, and started coming through to him, first his mother-in-law, and then a couple of years later when his father-in-law passed, coming through different signs, turning lights on and off, TVs on and off, special signs that show up that have meaning. And then Jeremy got into the ghost hunting equipment. That's where these things happen. He's not the first one I've had these experiences where they open their eyes to this reality and they want to know more. And they get out their first K2 meter or their first spirit box or SLS camera. I don't even have an SLS camera. I've always wanted one. So we're going to talk about that, the equipment that he's using tonight. But I also want to hear from you guys. If you had experiences like this with a loved one that's passed, you feel like was trying to communicate to you, I want to hear from you. Call in. The lines are now open. Join the conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Of course, I just missed a call. If I miss your call, I'll try calling back. I'll try to catch it. It does that. But let's get back to our guest. All right. We do have somebody on the line. We're going to get to them in just a minute. Let me see here. Get everybody back. Sorry. There we go. All right. So, Jeremy, I got somebody on the line. We're going to get to their call in a second. But tonight, I do want to get into some of the equipment that you're using and how you're using it. I would like to see a little more what's going on with your SLS in the background. Okay. I became convinced of the SLS many years ago, and I was very much skeptical of it when I first started seeing it. But we had a friend on, Keith Weldon, who had shared some evidence at, what was the name of the shop, Jamie, where that was at? Or she's muted right now. Remember the SLS camera evidence he had from the one lady at that was like a costume shop?
Daydreams and Nightmares.
Yeah. And they had, this thing was like consoling a lady, like putting its hand on. Yeah. It was
he made it out of a kinetic, the kinetic part of a Xbox, an old PlayStation, I think it was, or an Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah, but the way it moved and acted and responded to the people
Sat
in
on their
that room,
laps.
yeah, it was very convincing. It was very convincing. So I became much more sold on that deal. I want to get into that equipment. Are you all right though taking a phone call? Jeremy, you there?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
You good? Yeah, I hear you. You good with taking a phone call?
Yeah, whatever.
All
Yeah,
right.
fine.
All right. Who do we got on the line?
Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, I just turned my Bluetooth on, so can you hear me or?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay, I can hear you too.
I hope so.
Making sure here. Okay. So my dad was an agnostic, and he's 90 years old right now. But he was always an agnostic. Him and I were always opposite. I'm very spirit oriented. My whole life I've been very oriented toward the spirit. But that being said, the fact of the matter was he was atheist. No, not atheist. Agnostic. Okay, meaning agnostic means
It's a question.
There could be. Yeah, you know what it means, right? So, okay. So he was married to my mom for over 60 years, okay? So that's beyond golden years, okay? There's such a relationship there, And when she passed away, it was just, he couldn't get over that probably. He'll never get over it. But so my mom had dementia, okay? And she used to, before she died, she used to just sit in the car. They got a garage attached to the house, and she would just sit in the car, believe it or not. Like, people with dementia do crazy stuff like that. So anyway, that being said, so after she died, it's like at some point, the light in the car was on, like weird one time, and he turned the light off, in the car, and I think it went back on again by itself.
Yeah.
It's just really weird, like. So my dad's like, and that's only like one story, and then he's telling me these other stories, and here, he never believed in anything, like, about the afterlife, But I did a ghost box in the house, and I will tell you that what I heard was through it. My mom said, "Michael, it's your mother," through the box.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I never even really told anybody that. But one other thing about that was, I don't know, I thought there was something else. I was in her room, when I did that box. But that being said, the veil is not too thick. And there's a lot of freedom. And in my work that I do, how do you have swear words come through a radio? That's
like
sweeping.
SB7,
like
yeah.
I use AM usually, forward, not reverse or nothing, but like forward sweep. 350 millimeter, whatever, millisecond. But how do you have swear words? Come through there. I mean, so that's just another thing I would say, that yes, there are, and being into that work, dreams are really important too.
Oh yeah, I talk about that all the time.
But these are conduits that are used from our world to their world, which is like connected. The two worlds are connected. But like, I'll leave you with one thing here. Like Jesus said, that he says, daughter, Jesus said, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. and be free of your affliction. So you see, it's her faith. The faith is like a conduit, right? Or these experiences your guest is talking about, and I am, are conduit, huh? And that's how it's used. And pretty much by the end of our lives, we will realize yes. And then one other thing I'll leave you with: the afterlife is more real than this life. I understand. That's from a lot of near-death experiences that I listened to.
Yeah.
So,
that's what it
very
seems like.
important. I don't know if I got cut. Oh, go ahead. So that's about it. I wanted to share that with you.
No, thank you.
My dad reminded me of this, your guest. Being, not, faith is sort of a gift. I believe a gift could be that you're very good at something. We all are. We're all precious. That God loves us all, and that's probably why, because we're all special in our own way, and there's a love there. So I think people can come to faith, that gift, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Through these conduits. That being said,
Mike, what I think Mike, what I like to say, I think I like your point there, like as a conduit, because I do believe the more people involved have a belief in something, the more it solidifies. I believe more people involved that believe in something make the ability of the spirits to come through easier.
Right.
Like if you have a lot of skeptics in the room, it makes their ability to manipulate reality or do things harder, I believe.
Right.
But thank you for calling in, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for taking my call, and have a good evening, y'all, and a great Holy Week too, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, no show next Sunday. It's Easter, so I won't see you next Sunday. But you have a good
thanks
Easter.
for telling me.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Next week.
Next week.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, Mike.
Okay,
Thanks for
you
calling in.
guys have a good night. All right.
And like I said, anybody else can call in and share their experiences like Mike with a loved one that's passed and you believe has come through. I want to hear about it. Like I said, those are my favorite stories people share with me, are loved ones coming through. I think it's the most powerful. To me, it's the most evidence of a higher power in a sense. My experience with a higher power was unconditional love, this energy, the force, you want to call it. And I believe our bonds with other people are what's important to this thing, whatever God
what
is.
higher
the force.
power is there?
Yeah. So now let's get into the equipment. So you got your first SLS. Was that the first thing you got? Was the SLS camera?
No, as I say, we've been taking videos on the iPhone for a few months since before Roger died. One of the videos Caroline took was in our house. I decorated our back bedroom and spare bedroom. And she took a video of it to show her friend in Australia, because she thought when this friend visits, in a year or two's time, whatever, this is where she'd stay. So she was just showing this friend how I decorated the room, and we'd put a few of Roger's odds and ends in there. We'd got an old television of Roger's, we'd got his curtains, and there was a clock that his father had. So Caroline took a video just to show the friend how the room had been decorated. And then when she looked at the video, there were all these light anomalies flying around the room. It was bizarre. There were dozens of them. And she showed me the video, and I realized that, I'm sure these were possibly Roger or other spirits. I'm not sure. But there were some incredible things we saw there. So Caroline said to me, with all the signs that we're getting on the phones, why don't I get some ghost hunting equipment? And I resisted for about 6 months or so, but I finally relented and said, okay, if I get some equipment, I'm only going to get the best stuff, and I'm only going to be looking for your parents. I'm not going to be looking for any other spirits at all, because I'm scared of what could happen there. So I said that the first thing I'll get is a K2 meter, and I've seen these on the ghost hunting programs, and I could see that they seem to work well. So I bought one of these, and as you know, they're only cheap to buy, so I got a new one. I said to Karen, I'll only get good equipment. I won't get copies of anything. I'll only get the best stuff because
my wife has said go buy ghost hunting equipment. I've been like Amazon Prime, you know, like, yeah,
Well,
like let's go.
I saw all the programs, and I even though I thought a lot of the programs are a bit gimmicky, and that I would be scared in their position. I wouldn't do that myself, but I could see some of the equipment worked, and the things that I thought seemed to work were the K2 and the SLS cameras seemed to work, and also the Ovilus 3. And so these are the things that I thought I might get. So I got the K2 meter first, and we took it to the cemetery where Joan and Roger were both buried by this stage. And we got to their grave, and I turned the K2 on. And their grave is hundreds of yards from the road. There's no electric lights in the cemetery. There's no other electrical equipment at all in the cemetery. So I knew that if the K2 showed any sort of reading, then I was convinced that would be a spirit that was making it read. So I turned it on at their grave and started talking to Roger, saying, Roger, are you there? Because we'd seen odd light anomalies on the phone, you know, at the cemetery, and I was convinced that Roger was around. And the thought is that spirits hang out at graveyards, which I don't think probably true, but anyway,
I don't either.
I thought that's where we'll find them if we're going to find them. So we turned the K2 on, and straight away it's coming up with some pretty high readings. So as I talked to Roger, saying, are you there, Roger? Then suddenly he's flashing the lights on the K2 meter, you know, into the red, and we're having like a conversation with him, it seems. And I was certain that was him, and I was certain that it was him activating it. And literally we're sort of asking him questions, and he's flashing the lights as if to say yes, or if we come out with a statement, he's sort of flashing the lights as if to say yes, I agree with you. So I'm saying, that is you, isn't it, Roger? And a big flash of the lights up into the red. And I'm saying, that's you, the skeptic who doesn't believe in life after death. That's you, isn't it, Roger? And again, flashing the lights. And so we're having this conversation. So I said to him, I said, well, Karen's said I ought to get some ghost hunting equipment. And as you're operating this K2 so well, there's two other things I'm going to get. So one is an SLS camera. And I said, if it works when we get it, we might be able to see you on the camera. And the other is this Ovilus 3, like a talking dictionary, and it's got over 2,000 words in it. I said, you might even be able to communicate with us, you know, using words. And I've seen that they seem to work well. And so anyway, we went home, and I was searching on the internet for these things. And this was after COVID, and these things were in short supply. They were very popular, and obviously, as you know, the Ovilus 3 is obsolete, and it was, even then, it was sort of 15 years old or more, and there weren't many about. But eventually I won one on the eBay auction in America, and so I ordered it, and it was about £900, so it's sort of over $1,000. It's not a cheap thing. But anyway, I got this, and an SLS camera. I ordered that from America as well, and they arrived a couple of weeks later, and they both came on the same day, even though they're from different companies. So I turned the equipment on. I tried it out at home initially just to see how the stuff worked, and then I decided I'd go to the cemetery the next day with this equipment to see what I could find. Karen was at work that day, so I just took our spaniel Poppy with us, and it was a freezing cold day. You know, it was winter. It was December 2022. And I turned the equipment on when I got to the grave. And as soon as I got the SLS camera on, suddenly I can see, you know, a stick figure showing on the camera, which I knew that was Roger. So I was really overwhelmed. I was sort of in tears, really, saying, that's you, isn't it, Roger? I can't believe this. I can't believe you showed up straight away, because I thought I might be searching for months and I might never see you. And I just couldn't believe that he was there instantly. And I got the Ovilus on as well, and he's coming out with one or two appropriate words. Some words would show on the Ovilus, and I was thinking, well, I don't know what you mean by that, but one or two words would show up, and I'm thinking, yes, that's you activating the Ovilus, isn't it? But Anyway, I've got the equipment on for over 20 minutes, and he's there basically all the time, showing up as a stick figure, and I'm talking with him, and after a while,
Does it seem to respond to you when you talk to it? Like it does certain things you think are like
yeah,
showing
but
you?
basically, how Roger seems to work with the SLS, he knows where to be, and is always in shot of the camera. Basically, he's showing up. He knows to be in the right place, and if I pan the camera around slowly, then he tends to come around with it, and he'll be showing up wherever. So on the Ovilus, he'd come out with one or two words. I'm trying to think back now what words he came up with, but things like hug and kiss and stuff like that, and things that, I interpret it as him saying, I'd give you a hug if I were with you now, or I am with you now. I am giving you a hug, but obviously I can't feel it. Him being a spirit, but yeah, there's one or two sort of really appropriate words come up. The most appropriate word he's come up with on the Ovilus actually was a few days later, about a week or two later, because I obviously told Karen what he'd done, and I said I'm going to come back in a couple of days with the equipment when Karen's not working, and I said to Roger, would you be able to bring Joan with you next time, because there was only one spirit this first time, and in fact that's what happened. So a couple of days later we came back on the Saturday when Karen wasn't working. I turned the equipment on, and Roger didn't show up for a while, and then suddenly I see Roger on the SLS camera, and then a minute or so later, then I see another spirit, and I realise that's Joan. So I said to Karen, look, your mum and dad are here, and I said, do you want to reach out, Karen, see if you can touch their hand? And then, the spirit does appear to be putting their arm out as if to touch Caroline. And I said,
Do you ever
her,
did she ever? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you on that, but I was just curious when you say it, because I've had people feel stuff when that's happened.
Yeah, well, I was saying to Karen, just reach your hand out, see if you can feel the spirit, because, like you say, people can feel them apparently. And Caroline thought maybe she could feel something like a slight tingle, and I said, well, that could be the spirit that you're feeling, but I've tried it myself, and I'm not sure. I can't feel it, but Caroline thinks she might. And the most fantastic word on the Ovilus was a few days after this. It was just after Christmas. Caroline's sister came to our house for a meal. They'd been away, her and her husband, and we'd told them about what her dad had done on the Ovilus and on the SLS camera. And as I say, they were a bit skeptical, I think, but they came to our house, and I turned the equipment on. And I said, I'm going to look. Way, and I said, I'll tell you if your dad shows up. And then suddenly I can see his spirit, and I said, Alison, come over, and your dad's here. And I said, just reach out your hand and see if you can feel your dad. And he's holding his hand out as if to touch her, so it looks on the camera. And I said, Roger, if that's you, just say something to acknowledge that it's you and that you're with Alison. And as soon as I said that, he comes out with the word Ali on the Ovilus. That's Alley.
Yeah.
Now, he always called Alison Ali. He never called her Alison. But in the Ovilus database, there isn't the word Alison, and there isn't the word A-L-I. And he uses the word A-L-L-E-Y, and that's the only word he could have used.
You could get, yeah.
So that was fantastic. And we've had other cases where he's come out with absolutely the right word on the Ovilus. So I'd say that, a lot of the words that show on the Ovilus, I can't understand what he's saying. They all seem to be very cryptic. Whenever a word is used, it never is.
That's the problem with the Ovilus I've always had, is that it's going to just keep giving you words, and it's just like, when are we attaching meaning to the word that comes out? But I people like you, they have at certain times
specifically as it's like talking about it.
Right. I said that's what you're looking for with it. That's what you're looking for with it. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you ever run other equipment behind it? Like while you have that going, will you have maybe a radio or an app in another room recording so you can hear, like if one word comes out of the Ovilus, does that one word maybe come out of the jibber jabber that a radio's saying in the corner.
I've tried other equipment with Roger, and I've tried other devices. I've tried spirit boxes. I've tried digital recorders, see if I could hear any
EVP is
EVP.
my favorite. Yeah.
And I haven't been able to find him do anything else. I even tried an Ovilus 5 after having the Ovilus 3. I bought a new Ovilus 5 thinking, as it worked in the same way as the 3, he's going to be able to work that really well, and that was my plan. But he didn't seem to be able to activate it. So in all the stuff I've tried, I've found with him...
Everyone's got the go-to. Everyone's
we-
got their go-to piece.
Yeah.
We do have another phone call on the line we're going to get to here. Who do we have on the line? You're on air.
Adrian from Creepy, Connecticut.
Hey, Adrian. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good to hear you. On the subject of EVPs, I've had some experiences I'll share. One was back in the early 2000s. I had lost a very close friend. She was an older lady, like a second mother to me. She was a metaphysical teacher and an Egyptologist. And she lived where I worked at an apartment complex. So I got to know her very well, and she passed to cancer, and she left me some items too, a beautiful cluster crystal, a Native American doll, and all sorts of little pyramids and sand from under the Sphinx's foot. I mean, very significant things. So probably about a year after she passed, I was really missing her, and I decided to get my little cassette tape recorder, a real small one, and try and contact her. And I brought her stuff down to the coffee table and sat there and just immediately burst out into tears. I mean, I was blubbering and, spewing out how much I missed her, and I never heard anything with my own ears. But when I played it back, I can hear her call out so clear in her voice. Oh, my hair's standing up. She said, 80. That's my nickname. 80, 80, I am here. 80, 80. She was trying to get my attention to say, I'm here. But I was so upset and probably so loud crying, I missed it live if I could have heard it.
You might have
But
not
I
been
did
able to
get
hear
that.
it. I mean, with EVPs, most of the time you don't hear them with your ear,
True, yeah. And there was another experience I'll share that was somebody else's, but I was rather involved because a friend of hers, she's in another state, was missing. A very beautiful young lady, a mother of 2 or 3 children, and she went missing. I believe it was the St. Patrick's Day, too.
Wow.
And so she called me up knowing I was psychic because they were trying to find her. The police were able to get a ping on the phone, and well, I was picking up street names in a whole other state, and they're like, yeah, that's like right around the corner from where she was. And eventually I got like a construction site, but that was later on. But anyway, so apparently her friend was, trying to get EVPs to find out where she was. And it was heartbreaking. They were sending me these clips, and very clear on some of them, this missing, murdered woman was saying, I don't know where I am. I mean, she was desperate.
Really?
Oh, my, yeah. It would just bring tears to your eyes hearing her plead. And, it's like, we're trying to find your body.
And these were EVPs. These were EVPs, right?
Yes, on somebody's phone. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just creepy to the 10th power.
Yeah.
And one more quick thing I can share with you. I do have one of those K2 meters that goes from the green light to the red light, the simple ones. And I've used that quite a few times when I do spirit readings for people. And I had one work really well where there was a whole bunch of spirits in the room, but the last one to show up was the one that the mother really wanted to talk to, which happened to be her daughter. I didn't know anything. I like to go in cold, and it was her daughter who knew about electronics. The other ones were like older. She was able to do yeses and nos, by lighting up the K2 meter, almost like you do with a flashlight. And that worked quite well. And then I had a friend come over for lunch one day, and she was a little bit on the dark side, and I knew something came in with her. And she came over for lunch. I said, "You have something with you." She goes, "I'm not surprised." So I said, "I'm going to bring my K2 meter out." We ate at the picnic table. We had some tuna sandwiches and fruit, and I actually made a little plate for the spirit that came in and set it a place at our
What?
picnic
I would have
table.
walked her back
Put the cake.
outside and sprinkled salt and then let her come back in.
Yeah, well, anyway, that didn't happen. So as she was talking to me, she was telling me about events in her life that were kind of upsetting to her. People were upsetting her. And every time she got upset, the K2 meter would start to light up like the spirit was getting upset too and throwing out energy. That's the way I took it. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but anytime she got emotional, that K2 meter would go off. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting. That's all I can think of for now.
Oh, thank you, Adrian, for sharing.
Toys like that.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm enjoying the show.
Thanks. Thanks for calling in.
Yep. Good night.
Good night. With like EVPs, that was my, like, when I first got a paranormal investigation, that was like my first evidence I ever got was EVP, and I got like 100 or more solid EVPs I've kept over the years recorded. Like, it takes time. I tell people they do EVPs just to give it. Don't record don't go do stuff like leave a recorder in a room for an hour and then go try to listen to that. You're gonna be very, very bored. Have a conversation about 10 minutes long. Give time for them to respond. Don't keep talking. Ask a question. Let there be some silence, and then ask another. But give some room for them to talk, and don't go over like 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes at max. Keep the session short. Most of the greatest EVPs I got were like within the first minute or less of the recording starting.
Yeah, as I say, I've tried EVPs with Roger, but maybe I haven't tried it well enough. I haven't done exactly what you said, and I didn't think he could do it, but it's something I do.
Your belief could play impact in it. Your belief can play an impact on that too. Like I said, if you don't believe you can, maybe it doesn't help fuel him to do it.
I perhaps need to try it again and be a bit more patient next time, maybe. But to be honest, because he shows on the camera all the time, then I'm sort of happy with that. So
I'd be interested to see if you pursued it more on that, if you would start to get results.
Yeah.
Jamie was putting it in the chat room earlier. One of the things they mentioned was, are you familiar with the Skull Project?
Yes. Yeah. I've heard about that. I've seen that. That's incredible what they've done, isn't it? And
well, what that is similar to you, though, is that you're building this rapport, this communication, and it gets stronger the more you do it. They did it in a ritualistic way, in a sense, at the same place, same time, twice a week.
Yeah.
And they're all trans mediums, so they have their own personal energy. I think that it contributed to it in a sense, but that ritualistic, that belief and the openness to it, and every time it's getting stronger and stronger. I think you could find more ways to communicate with them if you went down that rabbit hole, even with EVPs. I mean, try stuff like white noise with it. I believe that it's something to do with the EVPs is something called stochastic resonance. And, a little bit soft white noise in the background might help, get that communication to go.
I did try a spirit box for a while, and I just couldn't sort of detect.
It's hard with spirit box, yeah. I like EVPs better than spirit boxes. I mean, I have an app here we could run right now and see if it comes through. And I've had it do stuff. I'd say stuff to people who call into the show, and it respond to them. We had an EVP live. I wouldn't even call it an EVP. I don't know, an EVP, and come live through the show once. We were running spirit boxes, but this wasn't from the spirit box, and it came through and said the nickname of one of the callers.
Really?
That was her friend she was trying to talk. She was talking out loud to her, and it literally said their nickname, Peanut Butter and Jelly. And yeah, it came right into the show audio. So I believe these when the power's there, and I believe the reason it was so strong is I had a medium on the show, Katrina Cooper.
Oh, right.
And I believe they're more like batteries to these things sometimes too. Now, have you dwelled or worked with mediums too on this?
Yes.
And they were close friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the book, there's 3 mediums we've worked with. They've each got their own chapter, and they've all been fantastic in different ways. So 3 weeks after Roger died, we went to see a medium who we'd seen before, who only performs at public shows, but he's fantastic. He's called Stephen Holbrook. He's from Yorkshire, but he goes all over the country and abroad as well. And we'd been recommended to him some years before by Caroline's brother-in-law's husband, Colin. So when Colin's dad died, Colin saw an advert in the local paper for Stephen Holbrook. He'd never heard of him before, but he went to a show. He thought, I ought to go and see this guy just in case my dad comes through. And his dad came through with an incredible message. So we'd been to see Stephen Holbrook a few times, never had any personal messages. But 3 weeks after Roger died, the 4 of us, Caroline, myself, Alison, and Colin, her husband, we all went to the Stephen Holbrook show because I said, I think, there's a chance your dad might come through. And he did. So Roger came through with a phenomenal message. It was 100% accurate. It was just incredible, all the things that he said through the medium. So Stephen Holbrook has helped me with the book, and he let us use the equipment at one of his shows, and we saw a load of spirits on the SLS camera at different points. And one of those spirits, Caroline is convinced is her dad. So during his show, he has an interval, and then he tells the audience, anyone who wants to come and buy one of my books that he's got about him, he said, come up and have a look, they're all for sale here. And there's a spirit behind Stephen, and it seems to be pointing to the books. Now Caroline's convinced that's her dad, Roger, because he loved books so much. But the other mediums we've had in the book, one is called Ali Mather, and she's familiar with all this equipment. And after I got this equipment myself and I started using it, and I realized that you can't have a conversation with the obelisk, you just got the odd word here and there. I realized I wanted to try and get a medium involved to see if they could help me to communicate with Roger. And I spoke to a few mediums, and some of them were really negative and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You might trap Joan and Roger's spirits here on Earth, and they won't be able to go on to the afterlife." And I was really worried about this. But I spoke to this medium, Ali Mather, and she said, "No, you won't do that. They'll only communicate with you because they want to." She was familiar with all this equipment because she uses some of it herself, and she was quite happy to work with us. And so we went to see her to her house and took the equipment, and we had a session with her. So she's making us some coffees, and till she comes in the room, Roger's showing up on the SLS camera. And as soon as Roger comes in the room, suddenly the stick figure of Roger disappears into Ali Mather. And I said, "Oh, Ali, it's a shame. Just as you came in the room, he's disappeared." And she said, "No, that's a good thing. It means he's blending with me. So we might get, some very positive, accurate readings," which we did. So Roger was coming through Ali Mather with some incredible messages, all about his complicated medical history and that. And every time Ali got something right with his medical history, then Roger would flash the K2 meter really strongly, as if to say, "Yes, you're right. That's it. That's what I had," and I agree with you. So that was fantastic. So there's a chapter about Ali Mather. And then the third medium is an American medium called Liz Murphy. And we had in fact, we had 2 readings with her about a year apart. The first time we had one, Caroline she was buying some stuff on eBay, knitting stuff of all things, and it was nothing to do with anything spiritual. She was buying this knitting stuff from this person in America called Liz Murphy. And then suddenly she gets an email from Liz Murphy saying, "Hi everyone, I'm stopping doing knitting and I'm becoming a medium, and I'm offering a free session, to see if it's for you." So Caroline wanted to have a have a session with Liz Murphy, and so she agreed it, and we had the session, and it was a pretty good session. But Karen hadn't told Liz Murphy that I was going to be using my equipment to film it. Karen didn't want to tell her in case it didn't work, and she didn't want to stop the reading going ahead. So after this reading, and Joan and Roger did show up briefly on the camera in our living room, and Liz is in America. We're obviously in the UK.
Yeah.
So we
I don't
told
think that
her.
matters.
No, it doesn't. We told Liz Murphy what we'd done, and she was really upset with us. And she, I could understand why she was upset because we hadn't told her beforehand, and she wouldn't talk to us for a while. But anyway, about a year later, I sort of messaged Liz Murphy again and said, "I'm really sorry about what we did. You know, would you think about doing it again with us, having another reading where we'll be all up front with you?" And she agreed. She was very good about that. So we had another session. And this time, Caroline's in the living room on her iPad, and Joan and Roger show up on the SLS camera right at the start, and they're there for more than an hour, just sat on the settee with Caroline while Liz is giving us some incredible readings, and they were phenomenal readings. But the reading that Liz did for Caroline's mum, Joan, was probably the most impressive of all. And she's saying things to Caroline like, you know, "Have you got lots of brothers and sisters? I'm seeing your mum surrounded by children." And Caroline said, no, I don't have. I've only got one sister. And then suddenly it hit Alice, and she said, "Oh yeah, my mum was a nursery nurse. She worked with children. She loved children." And that's the picture that Liz Murphy was getting from Joan. So the reading from Joan was absolutely spot on. And Liz is saying things like, you know, "Am I right in thinking that your dad was a bit of a difficult man? You know, it was all about him." And Karen said, "Yeah, that's exactly what it was." So Liz is picking up exactly on her mum and dad's character, and it was just phenomenal. And as I say, Joan and Roger were there on camera for the whole session of about an hour, and so it was just incredible. So in this book, as I say, there's a chapter about each of these three mediums. There's a chapter about the SPR investigator confirming that the SLS camera really is seeing a spirit. And then all the things on video, they're all on YouTube. But if I just hold it up, that's the book cover. And there's a QR code at the bottom there. Right. And if people use the QR code, then you can actually see all these videos that are associated with the book. So virtually every chapter in the book has a video associated with it. So if you use your smartphone on the QR code, you can see the videos for the chapters and other videos as well. And that's how you can sort of see what's going on, and each chapter describes what you've seen in the videos. And so
that's cool.
For instance, the Liz Murphy video, it's actually quite a long video, so people might not want to watch that initially, it's so long. But Liz Murphy describes how and why she became a medium and how the process works, which is really fascinating. But if anyone's interested, the first video to watch probably that's worth getting a flavour of what the whole book is about. It's about the SPR, so it's entitled "SPR Investigator Confirms SLS Camera Sees Genuine Spirit," and it's a 6-minute 1-second runtime. And in that video, there's the what happened when Roger showed up on the totally plain white wall at Northampton University, and the SPR investigator Aaron Lomas, he confirms that the SLS camera really is seeing genuine spirits. So yeah, if anyone's interested, that's the book, and it's available now to pre-order on Amazon. Just type in Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife, and it will come up. And there's a very good description of the book, and there's
we have the links, or for people on Facebook and YouTube, Jamie is sharing the links there in the chat room. But yeah, it's pretty easy to find if you go to Amazon, type in the title.
And I'm putting this cover.
Right up.
I'm putting the cover with the code right now in the actual post link itself, because I can't put it in comments. But if you click on the comments of the show link, they can just scan that code.
Right, brilliant, thanks. Okay. So yeah, that if anyone's interested, that book, it just describes in detail what happened with Joan and Roger, and photograph there on the cover of the ghost hunting equipment, that's there's two spirits there on the screen that you can just make out. That is the actual photograph of the SLS camera, the first time ever that we saw Joan and Roger on screen at the cemetery, the first time they showed up to us on the camera. So that's not just some cobbled together picture, that's a genuine first view of Joan and Roger as spirits in the afterlife. So as I say, it was such an emotional event. So yeah, this book describes in detail what we've gone through. Just what we've been talking about tonight, that's just sort of a fraction of what's in the book. It's really quite phenomenal, but it was inevitable with Roger being a passionate book lover. He had hundreds or thousands of books. I don't know how many he had, but it was inevitable that he'd want his story telling through a book. And because of all the videos of all the equipment, all the SLS camera videos and everything, which I saved every time I put the camera on, I recorded it and saved it. So I got loads and loads of videos. So it was hard to work out how I was going to combine the videos with a book, and then the QR code seems to be the way to do it really well. And it's I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. So hopefully anyone else who wants to read about Joan and Roger, they'll be fascinated. And there's a chapter on the equipment, what we used and how I did it, and gives people hints of anyone who wants to try something similar. And I think the key to success for us was that obviously Roger loved electronic equipment, but he was a teacher and an educator, and he's there in the afterlife, and he's trying to tell us all, I was wrong. There really is an afterlife, and I want to prove it to you, and I want to show you, and that's what he does. And it took someone like him, as a skeptic, suddenly realizing that he was wrong. It took someone with his determination to give us these messages, and give us the message that there is an afterlife, and he's wanting to get his story heard by as many people as possible. And just on that subject, it's fascinating. Just over a week ago, through a friend of a friend, I was told of someone whose husband had died just a couple of months ago, back in January. And this lady, she's actually a funeral director, and she was happy for me to talk about what we did a week ago, but she didn't want me to use their names, because her daughter still hasn't come to terms with her dad dying. But anyway, this lady, who, as I say, is a funeral director, when her husband died just back in January, she was convinced that he had given her a load of signs in her house. Cushions had been moved, on the settee and things like that. And she'd seen a fox outside the window, and she'd never seen one before. And there was some sort of in-joke between her and her late husband about foxes. It was something to do with a Greek song where it talks about the sly fox, and she's convinced that was him giving her this sign. So anyway, she heard what we'd done with Joan and Roger and our equipment, and she was keen, to find out more. So we went over to see her, took the equipment over, because I said to her when I spoke on the phone, I said, well, if your husband really is as keen to get in touch as you're telling me, then I think he might show up on the camera. So she was keen to give it a go. So we took it over, turned the equipment on, and then straight away her husband is there, sat in his chair, basically where he had his chair in the living room, his electric adjustable chair. It's no longer there, but there's another chair in that position, and her husband is there as a stick figure showing up in the living room. And he was there all the time again that we had the equipment on. And there was actually briefly another spirit, and we're not quite sure who that is. She thinks it could have been her husband's mother, because she was very important, obviously, in his life. But anyway, her husband was definitely on the camera, and her daughter was there. She's got, I think she might have 2 daughters and 1 son. I'm not exactly sure. But this daughter who was there when we went over, that seems to be the favorite child. She and her dad got on really well. They had a closer relationship than the wife and the husband had, actually, from all accounts. So the daughter's sitting in her chair on the settee, and she's putting her hand out, and the stick figure spirit of her dad, as we are sure it is, he was sort of touching her hand, and that's how he would have been, and it was just phenomenal. So it was such an impressive thing. But again, it goes back to this issue that this chap who died, he was a total skeptic, like Roger was,
Right.
didn't believe in all this, even though the wife did. And you know, he's coming back and telling her, like Roger, you know, I was wrong. There is an afterlife, when I'm giving you these signs of the cushions and the fox, and I'm here on camera. So I think that's what it takes to communicate with your relatives who pass on. They need to be really keen to get in touch with you, and as we were talking earlier, you know, they're keen to give us these signs, and we have to acknowledge them. But particularly, it seems to be the skeptics, the ones who didn't believe in life after death. They're the ones who seem to be the most keen to come back to people and say, hang on, I was wrong. You know, I'm giving you a sign to tell you that I'm here, even though I didn't believe in all this stuff. And this is what we find at these Stephen Holbrook shows, you know, that he comes through with perhaps, you know, as many as 6, even a dozen people in an evening, and very often the people who come through had been skeptics when they were alive. And another interesting thing of the Stephen Holbrook shows is that he comes through with people who have committed suicide, and I think in almost every case, the suicide people are ones who regret what they did, and they realize that it didn't solve anything. All it means is that they're going to come back for another physical lifetime to learn their lessons all over again, and they all regret.
You get a reincarnation, man. That's when you really start opening up people's eyes.
Yeah, that seems to be what life's all about, isn't it? Reincarnation seems to be a real thing, and that's what happens. We die, we go back to the spirit world, and we spend a while there, and then we come back and have another physical lifetime and another learning experience. And as far as I can gather, everything I've read and everything I've heard, that seems to be what life is all about. It's all these lifetimes we have, and we learn our lessons in each physical lifetime. And the physical lifetime is just our accelerated learning experience, our classroom, where we're learning all these various lessons before we head back to the spirit world for a while to recuperate, and then come back for another load of lessons. So yeah, it does seem to be that reincarnation is real, and some people think we reincarnate, you know, hundreds, thousands, whatever. I'm not sure.
You hear that in a lot of the boxes and things too, that they've been gone studying or doing their work or working on a lesson, and they have to go now, and it always kind of revolves around them needing to go do this like next stage of like studying for a little bit.
Yeah, everything I've found out since Joan and Roger have died, everything I've read about, it does seem that life is a learning process. That's the whole plan of life, isn't it? And that's what I could never come to terms with for the decades that I didn't believe in life after death. It just seemed absolute nonsense. If we're on this earth and we live, we have a lifetime, we die, and then after that there's nothing. You think, well,
seems like what a waste.
Yeah, it's just meaningless. I couldn't believe that life could be like that, and I could never understand if someone dies, then 1 second they're there as a person and got everything, you know, personality and consciousness, and then the next there's nothing. How could that be? You know, it just didn't make sense. And it's Caroline that was always telling me, she said, you know, you can't destroy energy. It just, you know, it just goes from one form to another. And she seemed to sort of understand that there was life after death, but I just couldn't weigh it up. And yeah, it'd just be nonsense if we live all this time on earth and then at the end that's the end and there's absolutely nothing after that.
Because the body is a vessel, and our consciousness kind of spreads out, goes back to, you know, the things that the nitrogen, the stars are made out of, everything else. And then slowly it comes back together, and
Yeah,
there we
I think
go.
that's where we in the West, you know, in our materialist world, we've got it all wrong. We think we're physical humans and we possibly have a spirit, but maybe we don't have a spirit. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the other way around. We're spirits, and every 100 or 200 years, perhaps, we get a physical body, and then we lose that again when it dies, when it packs up. But our self is still there. We've still got all our memories and our knowledge and everything else. We just don't have the physical bits that go with it. And yeah, we've got it back to front in the West, haven't we? You know, we think we're physical beings, but we're actually spiritual beings, and we sometimes have a physical body that the spirit resides in, like you say, like a vessel. So yeah,
I
it's
was
just
explaining it to my mom, almost like a hermit crab. And if you picture the hermit crab as being like the soul, the spirit, and the shells, because I had hermit crabs in my tank, I would watch it jump from one, to the other.
hmm.
And if you kind of see it that way,
Yeah, it's there's so much to try and understand, isn't there? And the more we understand, we're still only understand a tiny fraction of everything. And as you say, the whole universe, it's so complex. There's so many aspects to it, and yeah, we just as humans, we just understand the tiniest fraction of a percent of everything that's going on, don't we? I think it's just there's so much.
Well, usually I would go to a commercial break when we have like a half hour left. I have to get back on schedule with my kids now. Spring break's over and get up early to get them to school. And I have much more callers. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, but I want you to, before we go, get out any information. I know you have a YouTube channel too, right? Where you do the SLS, right? On the YouTube channel?
Yeah, so our YouTube channel is at Joan and Roger Afterlife. We've got the website, which is aliveintheafterlife.co.uk. If you go to the website, there's all the links to all the various social media and the YouTube channel, everything else. So yeah, go to the website as a first port of call. So that's aliveintheafterlife.co.uk. And anyone who's interested in the book itself, as I say, if you search on Amazon or anywhere that sells books, just enter Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife. It comes up really easily, and you can pre-order it. And then it's published in about a month's time, and you don't pay anything till they send it out to you. So you can pre-order it now, and that just tells you everything and more that we've been talking about tonight. And it's got the QR code with the links to the all the videos that are associated with the book, plus extra ones. So there's plenty of interesting stuff to watch. So yeah, I just hope some of your viewers and listeners might be inspired and might want to understand a bit more about Joan and Roger, and any tips in there about anyone who's wanting to do this for themselves, to try and communicate with any of their relatives. Then we'll tell you how we've done it, and it could well work for you. But go with your instincts, and whatever feels right for you, use whatever equipment you want to use, or particularly, obviously, getting mediums to help. That was such a big factor for us. You know, the mediums have been so impressive, and yeah, anyone who is convinced their relative is trying to make contact, then yeah, get a medium involved, get whatever equipment you think your relative might want to try out, and just take it from there. Go with whatever you think best, and I wish you all the luck in the world, because it's such a thing to communicate with your
I think once a
relative.
person's willingness and they want it, and they're, like I said, grief can really block people sometimes in this. But I think once people, you open up to it and you start noticing the signs, the synchronicities, or looking for it, the spirit finds a way to communicate to you one way or the other. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Jeremy, for being on the show tonight. It was a true honor to have you on.
Oh, thanks, Jason. It's been fantastic. It's just been wonderful. So it's been great. And you, Jamie, I hope all your listeners and viewers have enjoyed it and got something out of it. I'm sure they will have done. But yeah, thanks so much. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Sorry you got the wrong day Yeah, it's
That was
really
all my fault. I was so
It's all right.
busy. Our clocks had gone forward in the UK just at the time that I thought our show was on last night, and I didn't.
I was glad
spot
you
that
made
on the
it.
wrong day. Yeah, never
Because I get an
mind.
email in the morning a couple times where people thought it was in the morning. The show's a podcast recorded in the morning. Something like, no, we're a live show at night, Eastern PM. But you got the whole wrong day. But at least you're here. You made it, and it was an honor to have you on. Thank you so much, guys. Check out his book, Joan and Roger Alive in the Afterlife. Like you said, you can find it easily on Amazon. You type it in, you'll find it right there. But that's it for the show, guys. We will be back not next Sunday because it's Easter. That's right. We won't be back next Sunday, but we will be back the following week. Don't remember who I have scheduled. You'll find out then, hopefully, if not, our open lines. But thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Don't forget to follow and subscribe and tell your friends about Paranormal Soup, where the weird happens live every Sunday night, except for on holidays like Easter. All right, and thank you to our Patreon and YouTube channel members. Your donations do help pay the bills for the show. Super chats are always welcome and help too. Thank you guys for watching tonight and sharing out to your friends. Have a great night. See you in a couple weeks.